And just before lunch, we have another set-piece speech from another one of our political leaders just before he comes on stage, just to say a little bit about John Swinney. In the 26 years in which he has been an MSP, he has served his party's leader on 2 occasions, or he's been the leader on 2 occasions, the first being for 4 years from 2020 to 2004. When the SNP won the prize of government in 2007, ministerial office came calling, and since then he's more or less been on the front line, more or less all the time. He was Deputy First Minister for 9 years, Cabinet Secretary for Finance and the Economy, also for 9 years, Cabinet Secretary for COVID Recovery, and Education and Skills Secretary for 5 years. There's not a portfolio that he does not know intimately, which means that he is well appraised to consider the scope of the challenges the country faces in the next 25 years. We'll look forward today to his thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the First Minister of Scotland, John Swinney.
Well, good afternoon, and Bernard, thank you very much for the welcome, and thank you all for the opportunity to reflect on the future of Scotland and to take part in a conversation amongst us all who are invested in the future of our country. And I express at the outset of my contribution my willingness and my enthusiasm to work with people in Scotland to build the best future for our country. We all have a perspective on Scotland's future, and it will be formed by different experiences. I'm speaking here as a father, as a grandfather, and also as First Minister. My perspective is influenced by all of those experiences. This, for me, is about the world we build for Scotland's next generation and how we make our nation and our world as best as it possibly can be. But first, before turning to the world and the Scotland that we seek, I want to share some details of a new analysis that the government has published, Future Trends for Scotland. Drawing on a wide range of practitioner and other expert views, and shaped also by insights from young Scots, it sets out the trends that it appears from that research that we think are most likely to shape Scotland in the next 10 to 20 years. And I hope it can shape your thinking, as it certainly will shape the thinking of the Scottish Government. With the Future Trends Horizon Scan, we have the best available Scotland-specific analysis to inform our decisions both now and for the future. You'll recognise some of the trends that the work has identified. A growing risk to our democracy because of mis- and disinformation, with trust in institutions falling. Conflicts more frequent, climate change impacting soil quality, biodiversity and food supply, global progress on inequality stalling. And as a result of these and other global trends, increasing voluntary and involuntary migration. No guarantee that living standards will increase, but a real risk of ongoing wealth and income inequality and significant budgetary pressures as we struggle to meet the demands of an ageing population. But also, growing success for Scotland in fields such as space and life sciences, new opportunities in energy, and widespread adoption of AI alongside the work on quantum technology. A combination of hurdles, yes, and new horizons for our society and our economy. Warnings where we need to change or up the pace, but also doors opening if we have the courage to walk through them with confidence, with boldness, and with self-belief. And it's by shaping strategy and policy towards achieving long-term outcomes that we will be ready for these challenges and for the new world as it evolves. That's one of the reasons why the government is looking afresh at the National Performance Framework, so it can provide us with a clear North Star, a means of aligning our policy interventions to make the most of the opportunities that Scotland faces, but also to deal with the challenges that will come our way in the ensuing period. So a reformed National Performance Framework will help reshape government in Scotland. It will enable us to better focus budgets, to reduce the compartmentalisation that is a scourge of modern government, encourage collaboration between spheres of government and with partners in the third sector and the business community, which lies at the heart of the approach to government that I embody. It's one part, but an important part, of focusing government on delivering on the priorities of the people of Scotland as we build towards our vision of a Scotland that is more vibrant, more successful, more ambitious, even than the Scotland of today. But before looking forward, I wish to look back for a moment. As others have observed, the Scotland of 2050 is as far removed from us today as the Scotland into which our Parliament was born in 1999. Over the past quarter century, much has changed, but the Scotland of today is not some alien land compared to the Scotland of then. We can see clearly the threads connecting our reality now with choices made in the years in between. Yes, day-to-day life in Scotland has been fundamentally altered by technology, from the iPhone and the internet to emergent AI, and by geopolitics, from the rise of China to the impact of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, by climate change, globalisation, and by deindustrialisation. Changed also as a direct result of our disastrous withdrawal from the European Union and by the wholly negative impacts of austerity in the United Kingdom on the vitality of our public services or on people's living standards and quality of life. But it's also been shaped and changed for the better by the interventions of the Scottish Parliament, by Parliament's ban on smoking in public places, by minimum unit pricing of alcohol, or by the decisions to rapidly expand early learning and childcare, or the introduction of the HPV vaccination and the modernisation of our school estate, just to select a number of significant examples of improvement. So yes, the Scotland of 2050 will be shaped by a series of unpredictable forces, by new technologies we've only half imagined in the pages of science fiction, by conflicts now only simmering, by people who are only just born. But it will also be shaped by us, by the decisions we take, the policy choices we implement, the vision and the path forward that we set out. That's a great responsibility, but for me it is also exciting, inspiring and a privilege to shape it as First Minister. So how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? A big part of the answer is ensuring that we are in charge of our own destiny, that we have our hands on all the levers we need to make the biggest difference. A fiscal squeeze better dealt with if we are fully in charge of our nation's finances. The complexities of navigating climate change much easier if we are in charge of energy policy and our vast energy resources. Making sure we have a big enough working population to meet the demands of an ageing population, more options, more solutions possible if we are in charge of our immigration policy or members once again of the European Union. As we look around our land in 2050, my hope is that we see a modern, dynamic Scotland, a compassionate, enterprising, forward-looking nation-state, back where it belongs, at the very heart of Europe. That we've taken the climate challenge seriously and seen it as an opportunity for a complete redesign of our ways of living. For example, district heating schemes in every community, an everyday part of life, delivering low-cost heating and significantly lower energy bills. More livable communities full of climate-positive, modern, affordable homes with rethought and rediscovered high streets. More of our food grown locally and technology enabling more of what we use every day to be produced locally. We are a clean energy nation with the vast amounts of low-cost renewable energy that we produce, fueling a host of new business opportunities, data centres, research centres, energy-intensive manufacturing industries, low energy costs making it cheaper to produce food, low energy costs making it cheaper to heat our homes. Scotland, a clean energy powerhouse, an energy-rich Scotland, finally meaning also energy-rich Scots. We are a high-tech, clean-tech country with our public realm digitally transformed, high-tech solutions delivering more effective, more personalised health interventions, the right systems in place to manage the acute and support us more effectively as we enter older age. We've seen too high levels of child poverty, not in terms of handouts, but as a handbrake on our potential, as a limit on the success of our nation and what we can achieve together, and that we have acted decisively to eradicate child poverty in our land. As a result, we have released the potential of tens of thousands of ambitious, eager and talented young Scots, young men and women who are playing a crucial role, a fundamental role in building our nation anew. That we have looked at our place in this world and decided that the greatest opportunity for us and an approach that provides the greatest security is the European Union. Now, how do we get there? In part, through the necessary reality of good government. That has been my focus since I became First Minister. Interventions in that vein, like a realistic medium-term finance strategy, an effective population health strategy, and a clear-eyed and mobilising programme of public service reform, all initiatives being launched in this current week. By having government focused on a clear set of priorities and producing policy that is determined by the real-world, real-life needs of people rather than what might best suit our political system. Eradicating child poverty, boosting economic growth, delivering climate action, improving public services, especially the National Health Service. This prioritisation of government action on those things that matter most to people, those things that will deliver the most for people, is at the very heart of what I'm trying to achieve as First Minister. Listening to the public and addressing the strain they feel over the cost of living is an essential part of that agenda. It's also about collectively owning the vision and uniting in our determination to get there. It's about focusing our efforts behind a sharp and clear set of national outcomes and ambitious short, medium and longer term national goals. However, for me, most importantly, it's about deciding to take Scotland's future into our own hands. It's only, in my view, by taking charge of our own destiny with our own hand on the tiller that we are better able to ride the waves of change, that we are better able to shape our own future. That does not mean a Scotland standing alone, but rather a nation that has worked out its place in the world and the contribution it wants to make to the world. An ongoing, deep and rich partnership with the other nations of these islands, absolutely, but ultimately as a nation-state in our own right, as a member state of the world's largest trading bloc, the world's biggest single social and economic community, the European Union. I've long believed that Scotland is an afterthought to successive United Kingdom governments. Scotland is not on Westminster's radar in the same way as, say, London or the Midlands or the South West. From a UK perspective, that is completely understandable, but from a Scottish perspective, to accept it is total folly. It holds us back in ways big and small, leaving us waiting and praying, hoping that decisions taken at Westminster are not too damaging. We are prey to a broken system and a failing economic model, a system that delivers for the very few at the very top, while living standards stagnate and real wages are squeezed for the vast majority. It means, as a nation, that we must try to thrive on what amounts at worst to poison pills and at best policy scraps from the UK table. All this when we have the capacity to stand and to flourish on our own 2 feet. I know there are many in this room who are not yet persuaded by the case for independence, and others who will never be. I respect that. But independence is the defining choice for this generation. Have no doubt about that. Because the UK status quo has proved itself incapable of delivering on the hopes and the ambitions of the people of Scotland. That is why, like a clear majority of Scots, I believe our nation should have the right to choose our future. If this is a voluntary union, as Westminster politicians insist, then it is completely untenable that there is no mechanism for Scotland to leave the United Kingdom if it so wishes. Whether it is Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage, no Westminster politician should have the ability to deny Scotland her right to national self-determination. I want to close today with a piece of poetry that I think perfectly captures this moment in time for our nation. It was written by Liz Lochhead, Scotland's marker from 2011 to 2016. It's just been given pride of place, alongside many other inspirational lines of poetry and prose, on the Canongate wall of the Scottish Parliament. Liz Lochhead wrote, "This, our one small country, our one wondrous, spinning, dear green place, what shall we build of it together, in this, our one small time and space?" Today, you've heard something of my answer, something of my ambition for Scotland. It is a vision of a country that is fairer, wealthier, more at peace with itself than the Scotland of today. A Scotland that is modern, dynamic and forward-looking, living in anticipation of what more can be done, what else can be achieved, moving forward as one, moving forward with hope and with self-belief. Such a Scotland is within reach, I have no doubt. But if we want it, we have to work for it, we have to vote for it, we have to actively, purposefully, and I hope joyfully, make it happen. Thank you very much.
We literally have 5 minutes before lunch, so we've got time for 2 questions. I've interviewed Mr. Swinney on many occasions, so I don't want to ask a question. So I want to take 2 questions from the audience, but they have to be questions and not contributions. I'm going to take the woman, the third back row there, who's got her hand up. The microphone will make its way around to you. And then we'll take the chap down here in the second row. So we'll start with the women second back, then the chap down here in the second row. And again, just make it a question, not a contribution, because I think we're 5 minutes away from lunch. Yes, thank you.
Your speech sounds wonderful, but in reality, we're faced in communities with food banks, we're faced with failing high streets, we're faced with failing industry. Industry's moving away because they can't get people to work there, because we have no transport for the people to get jobs outside of our area. Now, you're talking about what a wonderful Scotland we've got, and you know, 2050. I'm a pensioner. I know, but 2050, 25 years will go away in jig time. It means nothing. If you're 25 in this room, you think, oh, that's ages away. 25 years to do all the things that you have said is not achievable, and I think we have to be realistic. So
okay.
Your thoughts on that, please?
Okay. I'm going to take the second question so that we can take them together, because time is limited. So that question there is that the lady doubts that this is achievable in the time scale, and yet the chap there. Thank you.
Thank you. First Minister, the quick question on the back of that, I suppose, in terms of what improvements then can be made within the Scottish Government to really slicken and accelerate growth within Scotland?
Well, let me take the 2 questions together, and thank you for both of those questions, because some of them relate to the challenges very directly that we all relate to the challenges that we face today. Some things we can address and focus on within the powers of the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government, and within the resources that we have available. So if I look at some of the steps that we've taken about, for example, the expansion of early learning and childcare, that was a strategic intervention by my government to make sure that children in Scotland could get off to the best start in life. So we started at the earliest possible moment by giving young people the best platform in their lives. And that can help to shape and to strengthen the future prospects of our generation by enabling children in our society to have the best start. And that's just one example of how we can use our powers to make Scotland a better place today. And I think that's happened. I've cited a number of other examples about where we've taken strategic moves in relation to health improvements, the HPV vaccination, which is a huge beneficial preventative intervention in Scottish society, in improving health outcomes. We've also taken steps on the ban on smoking in public places, not taken forward by my government, taken forward by a Labour and Liberal executive, supported by us in opposition, which has improved the health of Scotland. So I think if we look in the last 25 years, a lot can be achieved. So I'm optimistic about what can be done in the next 25 years. But I live with the ever-present reality that I am swimming against the tide of a more dominant policy stream from the United Kingdom government. So, if I give you the example of child poverty, which is my absolute driving priority as First Minister, we have managed to get child poverty rates falling in Scotland while they are rising in the rest of the United Kingdom, despite 14 years of Westminster austerity. Now, I think everyone in this room would be agreed with me that eliminating child poverty would be a good thing for us to achieve as a society. But we're having to work extraordinarily hard to maintain that position, because we now have a UK government which is going to announce its welfare provisions tomorrow, which on their original announcement will lead to an increase in child poverty, not a decrease. So there is a prevailing sense of policy from the UK government which is going to make our challenge in Scotland of achieving an objective that I think we would all share much more difficult to realise. So there, for me, is a crystallisation of why Scotland should be in control of our own destiny, because we would be able to shape our own decisions and our own choices without having our agenda undermined by the United Kingdom government. Brexit, a decision rejected in Scotland, total and unmitigated economic disaster for the United Kingdom. The reason why people are living just now is because their standards of living are not rising. Why? Because of Brexit. Brexit made every single one of us poor. It was folly. But I'm the only one that's wanting to, well, Scottish National Party leadership is the only one that wants to break us out of that and get into a sensible relationship as an independent member of the UK. So that's a long way of
Maybe just to deal with the point of growth, because in your speech you were quite right to, in a sense, point out public policy choices, which are public policy choices which we have in Scotland, which are not replicated south of the border, and it demonstrates the ability of the Parliament to chart a different way for the country. But you're grappling day in, day out with public services which are groaning under the demands for the service, which the demographics tell us is going to increase in the next 25 years. And the job that you have may well be made completely impossible unless you could grow the economy, which will underpin the resources which those public services will need. So how do you grow the economy?
There's two aspects to that question, Bernard, which I think are important. One is about growth, and one is about changing the way in which demand emerges for our public services. So yesterday I delivered a speech which was all about an ever more substantial shift to preventative interventions to avoid rising demand. So that's one part of the answer. The second part of the argument is about making sure that we use our public investment effectively to support strategic investment in the Scottish economy. Part of that, one of the things that I think is emerging as a very successful intervention is the Scottish National Investment Plan. So what that's doing is it's using public sector investment capital to de-risk projects that were probably going to challenge to be approved as entire private sector projects, to enable those projects to happen by de-risking. So that's a sensible use of public sector capital to reduce risk in projects, attract investment into Scotland, and as a consequence to assist in growing the economy. So we've got to think more actively about measures of that nature to get us into a position whereby we can encourage and motivate growth. Because as you know, if you look at the central priorities of my government, eradicate child poverty, get to net zero, improve the public services, especially the National Health Service, but boost economic growth. I unreservedly say that if we want to live in the type of Scotland that I'm setting out in my speech, we've got to deliver dynamic growth in the Scottish economy. And measures such as the Investment Bank or our partnership through our enterprise agencies to boost growth or to take strategic investment projects in the infrastructure of the economy are all part of that.
Well, we've run over by 10 minutes, but I think it was worthwhile just to get those couple of questions in. You've had the First Minister's pitch. We're going to be back for the afternoon session at 2:10, when the man who wants to be First Minister, Anas Sarwar, the leader of the Scottish Labour Party, will address you and take your questions. But can I thank Mr Swinney for taking time out of his ministerial diary to address us this morning.